Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Business, episode number 9. And now it is time for our featured guest. I'm glad that you are here with us. Whether you are joining us on 94.5 The Answer here in the upstate, or maybe you're catching our podcast, or you are watching our YouTube series that comes out every week. Regardless of how you're accessing, appreciate you being here. And Pam Evette is with us, Lieutenant Governor. She's been with me a couple times before. I always enjoy having her here. Lieutenant Governor, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
It is good to have you. I want to talk about all kinds of fun stuff today.
Perfect.
Now, I want to start with manufacturing. Every time we're together, we always talk manufacturing, right? We know a little bit about manufacturing in South Carolina.
We lead in the globe.
We lead the globe, literally, in some situations. And let's talk about that. I mean, we are the number one exporter of tires in the world. We're the tire capital of the world.
Yep.
We're the number one exporter of ready-made vehicles, at least in terms of value, of export value, in the country. But there is something that some folks may not know, and that is we're pretty good in aerospace too.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, let me make sure I have this right. South Carolina ranks number 3 nationwide in export value of aircraft and parts. Number 3. This kind of snuck up on us. Okay, so we had Boeing, that pops in, in 09. And then now we manufacture something called an F-16 Fighting Falcon. All that's really cool, but this took me by surprise. Number 3.
Yes, we are. And, so my good friend, Lieutenant Governor of Alabama, Alabama is hanging on to that title. They do a lot in aerospace, and every time we're together.
Are they number 1?
I think they are number 1. Okay, but right. I tell them they're only number 1 because we haven't really been trying, but I'm going to take that away from him very soon.
That's right. Once we decide to get serious about it?
That's right. Once it becomes in front of us, we're gonna take it. And so, but we are, thank goodness, Lockheed Martin, what an amazing partner to the state. Rolling the first F-16 Block 70s off. Right. We sold those, had the generals from Bahrain here. And I think when we talk about advanced manufacturing, we talk about manufacturing, we have to talk about our amazing technical colleges. Because, a few years when Lockheed was looking at Greenville to start building those planes, they were looking for a workforce. And we sat down with them and said, it's our technical colleges. That's who will build you the workforce you need. And, then fast forward, the first F-16s coming off the line, that was the first thing the president of Lockheed said, is you promised us that, you delivered that. And he said what touched him the most was seeing those 18, 19, 20-year-olds on that line, basically in tears with pride of what they were producing. And I talk about South Carolina's fingerprints all the time, and that is one of our fingerprints. Our fingerprints are on those planes, keeping our allies safe all over the globe.
Yeah. 400 aerospace companies in South Carolina, 136,000 jobs that are tied to aerospace. And much like we saw with the auto industry when BMW moved here, way back in the early 90s, the supply chain follows.
Yeah.
And so now we have all of these companies that are in support of Boeing and in support of Lockheed Martin that continue to push this. Where do we go from here with aerospace? What do you think we're going to see?
I think we're going to see more production being done here. We're going to keep pushing out a good quality workforce. Again, compliments of our amazing technical colleges. But you touched on something that I don't think we talk about a lot. And I've been talking about it more and more. When BMW came here, all the rigmarole that went around, so much is going into BMW, there's incentives going to BMW. Why is that happening? They're this big company that produces luxury cars. Now look today. If you had that globe back then, right, to the naysayers who didn't want BMW and they didn't want the state to get involved in that transaction, can you imagine where we would be? Look at how many Tier 2. I just came back from BMW's Supplier Diversity Conference. And when you look at what they've done to South Carolina, they put us on a new trajectory. It was the Tier 2, the Tier 3, the mom and pop businesses, how they generated a whole economy. And look at all the entrepreneurs that would have never been able to jump into these spaces had BMW not come and settled here. So I want people to always think about that when they look at what's down the road. And, we're competing with other states. So as a state, when we have to put incentives on the table, we're doing that because every other state is doing it. We just want to make sure that they're good, sound incentives, that doesn't put taxpayer money at risk. And we have done a great job doing that here in South Carolina.
Electric vehicles. 17% of people have owned an electric vehicle. Now, this is nationwide, not South Carolina. 50% say they are likely to buy one in the next 5 years. The U.S. average is 8.7 a thousand, but South Carolina is near the bottom at 3.1 a thousand in terms of per capita ownership of EVs. Mm-hmm. Do we care?
I think people care. I think what we need to care about as leaders, right, in the state is we want to make sure we're going where the market is driving us. No pun intended. We want to go where the market is driving us, right?
Yeah.
And if EV is going to become something that is going to be a global thing where people are going to want this technology and they're going to use it, then we want to make sure that we're taking the lead on that here in South Carolina, if that's where everybody's going to. What I always want to say, because I get asked this question a lot, is in South Carolina, you're never going to see the governor or myself tell any South Carolinian what they should drive. You should drive what you want to drive, but if the technology is something that's going to be, the wave of the future, well, we want to be in on that. And we want to make sure that those good quality, high-paying jobs are right here in our state.
Federal government put out a target not too long ago, Biden administration, saying that half of new passenger cars and light trucks sold should be EV by the year 2030. Now, let's say, what is that? Let's provide some context. That moves the country from less than 3 million vehicles today to 50 million electric vehicles on the road in 7 years. Now, what would that mean? We would need another 1.2 million fast charging stations and another 28 million charging stations in your home. That is not possible, right?
Well, what I would say about the Biden administration is they haven't been too great with what they've been trying to do up until this point. I know I'm a little biased, but we saw what happened when you try to force anything, right? As Americans, we don't like government to force anything on us. California, their governor, came out saying that he wants all gas-powered vehicles off the road. And the very next day was begging people to turn down their energy, turn off your air conditioners. We need the energy. We're going to have blackouts. But you've touched upon something that's very near and dear with the governor and myself and our administration is making sure that we are looking forward at what energy looks like here in our state. Many people are surprised to learn that on Christmas Day, we almost had a rolling blackout here in our state. There's lots of people that are really focused, the governor, one of them, on how are we going to make sure we have enough energy for not only South Carolinians, but for businesses that are coming here. It's crucial. So much so that he had an energy summit. I would be proud to be in Utah in another month, actually, at an energy summit out there, working hand in hand with Duke and Dominion to see what that looks like. Learning a lot about why, solar is a great thing. But when the sun goes down, so does solar. I was out at Dominion looking at their control room, and you can see, solar is coming in hot. No pun intended on that either, right? But when the sun goes down, solar drops off. So it has to couple with something that's reliable. And so,
what is that?
Natural gas. And I don't think we should limit it to that, right? I think we need to look at everything to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves. But natural gas is huge. We have abundance of it here. The Biden administration did Americans no good service by shutting down pipelines. It made us energy dependent. I was in Israel a year ago where they were touting energy independence and how that gave them, such pride that they were. And I remember telling one of the Biden appointees if he could please roll that up and let his boss know that my constituents would like to be energy independent again, too, and see what he could do about that. But it's true. We have to make sure that we're looking at all things. We're looking at nuclear. The small modular nuclear reactors we need to be looking at. We need to be looking at natural gas. We need to be looking at everything. We need to look at solar. Solar is great. Solar has been part of our energy calculation for a long time here in South Carolina. But we have to make sure, again, that we couple it with something that's reliable, that we can spur up when we have a cloudy day here in South Carolina and we're not seeing the production out of solar. Duke Energy with its hydro power station here in the upstate. I'll be out there looking at that, really getting a grasp of what we need.
I want to steer you back to electric vehicles for a second. And I'm going back to this. I want to get your comment on what you think BMW, Volvo, Daimler, Daimler vans, Mercedes, which of course we have all in the state, might think about this. This is, whether we like it or not, it's a red state, blue state issue that we're dealing with here. The top 15 states that use electric vehicles are blue states, other than a couple, one of which being Arizona, which we're not sure what Arizona is these days, blue or red, right? And the bottom 15 states that don't use electric vehicles are, for the most part, red states. South Carolina, we're as red as red, right?
Absolutely.
No doubt about that. And I think under normal circumstances that we might just not care too much about this particular issue. However, we have BMW here, and BMW cares.
With a $1.7 billion investment last year.
That is correct. We have Volvo here. Volvo cares. We have Daimler vans, Mercedes. They're not producing electric vans right now down there, but they care. So from your perspective, how do you walk that line between what appears to me to be a state full of folks that don't really care? I mean, statistics back that up.
Yeah.
However, what is running our economy in South Carolina, advanced manufacturing and automobiles, they do care. How do you walk that line?
Well, I think just like I said earlier, we want to make sure we're on the cutting edge of, technology wherever that is. And if the world is driving that market, then we should be producing it. But we don't have to drag our people along with us. That's the difference really between a red state and a blue state. Blue states shoving these things down people's throats. Here, we want people to feel comfortable with whatever they want to use, right? If they want to use their gas car, that's great. If you want to use an electric car, that's great. We really believe government should be out of people's business. Let people make informed choices. And when you do that, you'll bring people along if it's the right thing for them.
Let's change the subject and talk about IT, information technology. A story came across my desk here not too long ago that surprised me, much like the aerospace statistics that I was looking at. And this really surprised me. Charleston, and they count Myrtle Beach in there, is the fastest growing mid-sized metro area for IT jobs. And that includes cybersecurity and defense and consumer security. I did not expect that. How long has that been happening?
Well, it has. It's been creeping up. PCmatic, you probably see them. They do a lot of advertising. PCmatic is based out of Myrtle Beach. You have DC Block coming into Myrtle Beach. What an amazing opportunity. My good friend, Dr. Ford, Horry Georgetown Tech, they started a cyber program 5 years ago looking at how do we use cybersecurity and how do we help businesses, because we want South Carolina to have a diverse revenue stream, right? So I have kids, you have kids, everybody listening out there, a lot of them have kids. We want to make sure that as we get kids through our institutions of higher learning, whether it be our amazing technical colleges or our wonderful 4 universities, that we're able to keep those kids here and employed. So we want to make sure we have a diverse landscape for them to stay here, whether it be IT, whether it be research, whether it be, advanced manufacturing, whether it be aerospace. We are doing a good service by our people by making sure that we have a landscape of things. I mean, you add on to that, tourism and agriculture, which I always say, Dwayne Parrish and Hugh Weathers, they arm wrestle for number one, right, at any given point in the year. We don't talk about all that, but you encompass all that together. And then you look at this beautiful place we get to live in. You could have breakfast in the mountains and dinner at the coast in any given day. There's very few places you can say that. Our quality of life is amazing. We're able to, afford our homes, something you don't see, in places like California, New York, and New Jersey. People are getting fed up with that. People need to be able to feed their kids and put a roof over their head. And that's why they're coming to states like ours.
High-tech jobs in Charleston have grown by 24% over the last few years compared to less than 9% nationwide. We've added 4,000 jobs. Now, I'm not sure. Why do you think it's Charleston, the low country, that has been the center for the IT growth? Is it because of younger people because Charleston has been growing with young adults a lot quicker than the rest of the state? Is that part of it or what? What do you think?
Well, I think Charleston's a beautiful place to live. It's gotten a lot of national recognition long before other parts of the state did. It was kind of the first one to jump out. Remember wedding venues? That seemed to be the place where everybody wanted to go. So I think focus came on Charleston. People got down there, but we see that here in Greenville too. When we would have clients, David and I would have clients come in to our offices or do business with us, and they would stay in Greenville, and the first thing they'd say is, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how beautiful your city was. Like, I need to bring my family back." And so you're starting to see that, Myrtle Beach has always gotten people's attention because if you're from the north, this is halfway to Florida. People liked it. It's very family friendly. So, I think, it could have been that. I think DC Block coming in is, like I said, a really big deal, putting in that, underground fiber optics and doing data storage and management and security there. So you're just starting to see people want a good quality way of life. COVID, how many people came down here during COVID because, we didn't lock down. People came down here because they got locked out of their states and then decided to stay. So I think you're seeing a lot of that. People thought if I have to be locked up, I'm going to come down to South Carolina. I'm going to rent a house by the coast, right? And I'm going to look out at that ocean. And then they said, "Dear Lord, I'm never leaving."
That's similar to what happened to me 2 decades ago. When we talk about South Carolina, we know from an industry perspective what drives it, or at least we think we do. We think of advanced manufacturing. Yep. We think of tourism, of course. Yep. But one thing that we don't always think, and it's really the biggest one in some regards, and that's agribusiness.
Yes.
It's not the biggest in terms of the total economic impact, even though it is second. But what I want to talk about is, hang on, let me back up. Let me give a little context to that. Agribusiness, 262,000 jobs in South Carolina, $52 billion in economic impact. That is slightly above aerospace. It is, of course, not where auto manufacturing is by any means. 5 million acres of farmland in South Carolina. The reason I bring this up is because the Department of Agriculture recently announced a new incentive program for agribusiness in the state. It's called the Growing Agribusiness Fund, and it will receive $40 million to help existing South Carolina businesses with processing, packaging, manufacturing, distribution, storage, blah, 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 all for our agribusiness industry. Yeah. Big stuff.
It is great stuff. Right here in the upstate, we have Brown's Meat Packing. Brown's used to actually, Hugh had told me the story, they used to send their meat up to New York to be processed, to come back down. And so this helps our businesses that are here bring more of the process here, keeping those jobs and dollars right here in our state. Titan Farms, I was out there about a month ago, learning all about peaches. Our neighbors to the south, pretending to be the peach state. We are number 3 in the country for peach production.
I did not know that.
Triple. What happens?
So Georgia is number 1, I'm assuming.
No.
Who's number?
We beat. I think it's California.
Really?
I think we're 2. I'm sorry. I think we're 2. We produce 3 times more peaches than Georgia.
No way. The peach tree state.
Yeah. I'm poking at their lieutenant governor all the time, saying that's fake news. Fake news. That's fake news in South Carolina.
I love it. I did not know that. Okay, please keep going.
So so we are doing a lot, and we have to make sure we help protect our farmers, and we have to make sure that bad policies. I was out in Iowa last week with my other lieutenant governors from around the country, and being in Iowa, that's the corn state, and that is the pork state. If you love bacon and sausage with your morning breakfast, that's where you want to be. Yeah. And hearing those farmers and their association talk about bad policy. So there's a piece of bad legislation coming out of California that would limit how many pigs could be together in one area, which would mean that hog farmers would have to have less livestock, which could, if it passes, could end up tripling the price of pork across the country. You see how bad legislative decisions could affect all of America, even though this is a state-driven initiative. Because what it would basically do would be stopping farmers from, if they didn't follow these guidelines, from selling to anybody in the state of California. And apparently, I want to say, I don't have my notes in front of me, it was about 18% of pork usage comes out of California. So it's a big deal for them. If they stood by it now, I would hope that they would just say, well, California, in your legislative team, we won't sell to you. And I bet I could get a bunch of people here in South Carolina to buy an extra pack of bacon or an extra pack of sausage every week I think nationwide we could get 49 states to eat up that 18%, I would hope.
I would guess so.
I would think so. I don't know about you, but my family will be very sad if bacon prices tripled.
Bacon, they always say everything is better with bacon, right? I mean, what can you think of that is not better with bacon or bacon flavor?
Absolutely. But this is an example of why agribusiness is so important, right? Because if we learned anything during COVID, if you think people were unhappy when they couldn't get toilet paper and paper towels, imagine if they can't get food, right? So I always try to be very supportive of our farmers. We have the South Carolina School of Ag, the Governor's School of Ag, and I mean, turning out those next generations, getting kids excited about what that is. To all the parents listening, make sure your kids know that, it's not Publix that produces those groceries, it's a farmer. So when you see a farmer, thank a farmer, because we wouldn't be where we are. It would be a national security issue if we could not get enough food to do that.
See a farmer, thank a farmer. I like it.
That's right.
Let's move to the other industry that drives the state, and that's tourism. Last year, we had a heck of a year.
Yes.
Matter of fact, we set state records. I don't remember what it was, but it was something like $28 billion of impact in the tourism industry in 2022. And I really thought we'd come back to the ground this year, but it appears that we're in the process of doing about the same this year that we did last year, which was set a record. We all love South Carolina, but what is happening?
Well, the secret's out. That's what it is. The secret's out about South Carolina. And, we have so many great things to offer. People are coming to our state. PGA, we're adding another PGA tournament to Myrtle Beach. Yes. We're bringing that back. That's going to be huge. So we're just, wonderful to PRT. Dwayne is doing a great job, Dwayne Parrish, the director there, making sure he continues to bring in these great events that puts a spotlight really on our state and all the wonderful things it has to offer. I mean, golf courses per capita, can you beat South Carolina? Play on any ocean course and you'll probably never want to play anywhere else. So, doing a great job of highlighting our strengths in that. And like I said, go back to the fact that South Carolina is a very affordable state. You can come here, our room prices are good. We have amazing restaurants, great food. So what's not to like? Why wouldn't you want to come here?
That's a good point. You mentioned golf. You play golf, do you not?
I do play golf.
Yeah, and how often do you play?
Not as much as I need to get really good and beat my husband, David.
Yeah, what's your handicap? Do you keep a handicap?
I don't keep a handicap.
What's a good day for you on the course? What are you
my goodness. We're not going to talk about that.
Okay, all right.
You know what?
But you get out there and you swing the club.
I do. And you know what? I can tell teeing off a one what kind of game I'm going to have. Because I don't get to play enough to have a consistent game.
I hear you.
So if I start out strong, I'll probably end strong. If I start out bad, I'll want to sell my clubs.
I think we're all like that. Lieutenant Governor, I'm going to get you out of here on this. In May, the legislative session ended. Yes. Lots of stuff happened. Yes. A few months ago, you've had time to kind of process that. Give us some highlights. What were a couple of big things that came out of the session?
One thing that I'm very proud of, and I think because as a mom, it really pulled my heartstrings. I had some moms into my office November of last year talking about this fentanyl epidemic. They all lost children. 2 of the 3 kids were thinking they were buying Adderall to stay awake at college. They were not drug users. This is a poison. One of the parents directly asked me, he said, when you talk about fentanyl, say it what it is, it's a poison. And we all know our kids, they do silly things that we ask them never to do because they don't think that it's ever going to be something that hurts them. But like in those 2 moms who sat crying in my office and said, help us. And I said, how do I help? And they said, we need laws. We need a law because fentanyl being a kind of a byproduct didn't have a law that our amazing law enforcement could lock people up for selling or distributing. And we did that this year. The General Assembly, thanks to them, Chief Keel played a huge role in that. Governor signed that into law. We will now have a stronger fentanyl law than the federal law that's on the books. If you are caught distributing, selling, producing fentanyl, you will go to jail up to 40 years. So I think it sent a very clear message to bad actors. If you're going to do this, don't do it in our state. But to be clear, the sentiment that comes from everybody is that if the Biden administration does not close our southern borders, this problem is going to continue to grow. and it is taking the lives of our children by leaps and bounds. It's the number one killer of children, and that should be something that opens up all of our eyes. But we can do all we can do in our state, but unless that southern border gets closed, we know it's the pathway. Chief Keel will tell you it's the pathway. Law enforcement will tell you they are, and our troops. Governor sent our troops to the border, our SC Guard troops there, and the stories coming back is they didn't want to come back home, not because they didn't miss their families, because they did, but they felt they had such a purpose down there, and they were catching the inflow of fentanyl left and right. And so to everybody that doesn't think the next election is going to be groundbreaking, it is. And if we look nothing else at the vulnerability of our country now, because we have an administration that will not close that border, just talk to a parent that lost a child to senseless things like this, and you'll know how important this issue is.
Good stuff. Lieutenant Governor, I appreciate you.
Thank you. I love coming on and talking.
Well, I appreciate
talking
you
business
being
all
here.
the time.
Heck yeah, let's talk business more often. Folks, that is our Lieutenant Governor, South Carolina Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette. And we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back in about 60 seconds. Don't go anywhere.